Here's the snap out of the gun. Play action fake. Pass to Gronkowski. He's going to score a touchdown. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Holy guacamole. He breaks the record. He's got his 23rd touchdown in the postseason from Tom Brady. Brady to Gronkowski for the 23rd time in the postseason.
And it would be the 24th time in the season as well before the night was over as we welcome you to Super Bowl today. Post-game special presented by Truist. You see the man right there. That would be Bucky Brooks. Played for 5 teams, including the Chiefs, as a matter of fact. Scouted for a pair of squads that went to the Super Bowl while he was on the staff, Carolina and Seattle. Harkening back to our draft tracker days, Bucky. You are our NFL Super Scout here at the network and on NFL digital platforms. So I'll start with the obvious question. I felt like most people going in said this is going to be one of the great ones. Boy, we cannot wait. And instead we get out and it's Tampa out by 22. They knock off the Chiefs 31-9.
Completely shocked by the outcome, Money. And this is a game where I thought it was going to be a great game. We're going to see 2 high-powered offenses doing what they do like they've done all year. And what happened, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense absolutely took over. You have a defense that throttled the Kansas City Chiefs at every turn. And then they gave the ball to Tom Brady, and Tom Brady does what he always does in these games. He finds a way to get his team to the winner's circle. Was efficient, was effective, got the ball to the playmakers, and he got out of the way and let his defense do the dirty work.
Yeah, Buck, and I'd love for you to kind of help folks that are watching understand, because the common theme and the narrative is what people call it was, well, the Bucs, they're going to get home in 4. You got injured tackles left and right, backups, journeymen for the Chiefs. But what does that do? Because to me, when I look at the box score, I see Levante David and Devin White as your leading tacklers, and I see really a Travis Kelce that was held in check until the game was no longer in the balance. And to me, getting home with 4 frees up everyone else, particularly those linebackers, to do the damage they were able to do.
I give Todd Bowles a ton of credit because this is a team that is really won by pressuring relentlessly. Zone pressures where they bring in 5 or more guys playing zone behind it. But in this game, 80% of the time they showed a 2-deep shell. They played zone coverage, only blitzed on maybe 9% of the downs. And they did a great job of taking away the deep ball, rallying and tackling in open field. And they made the Kansas City Chiefs try and dink and dunk the ball down the field. And they couldn't do it because the 4-man rush with Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett, and Ndamukong Suh, they absolutely dominated at the point of attack. And Patrick Mahomes was never comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah, and when you mentioned they brought pressure, I mean, obviously that's a Todd Bowles hallmark, right? He's going to throw it at you and force you to beat him and get it out quick and try to figure out where you want to go with it. But it seemed like in this one, and it reminds us of Week 16, right, when Patrick Mahomes was playing, and they needed a Younghoe Koo missed field goal to avoid overtime, and what Raheem Morris did for the Falcons. And that wasn't necessarily bringing pressure, but doing simulated pressure. And it felt like there were always, 5 or 6 guys on that line of scrimmage, even if they were only rushing 4.
Hey, look, it's the new craze in the National Football League when we call simulated pressure. Simulated pressure means that you show 5 or 6 coming, but when the down evolves, you only see a 4-man rush and you see 7 guys in coverage. Now, it may be a different set of 4 guys that are rushing, but it's a 4-man rush, 7 people in coverage. You get maximum coverage because you can cover everything, and then you're able to really put one-on-one matchups on the front line. And because the Kansas City Chiefs aren't a team that's very diverse in the way that they deploy their personnel, meaning this is a team that likes to play in 1 back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers all the time, they never could make an adjustment to how this 4-man rush was getting home. And when you have backup offensive tackles starting, sometimes you need to help them. Andy Reid never came up with answers to deal with this 4-man pressure package.
Yeah, and I'd like to pat ourselves on the back here. We led not with Tom Brady, but with defense, because that really was the theme of what led to Tampa getting this victory in Super Bowl 55. But look, one hand's got to wash the other, right? If you're going to be able to pin your ears back and get after the quarterback, you got to get some points produced on the other side of the ball. And they were able to do that, especially with just, that gut punch at the end of the half, just like they had in the NFC Championship game. And Buck, as I'm jotting down notes, and I noticed you had your notepad when you sat down. The one thing I kind of really jumped out at me when the game was still in the balance was how often the Bucs were running on first down. The analytics crew wants to congratulate everyone for throwing the ball on first down. 8 of 17 in the first through the first 3 quarters. They ran on first down, and what did that set up? Play action, and boy, was that play action working today.
You know, Money, I think it was part of a bigger plan. And the plan when it comes to the running game is not necessarily, hey, we want to gut punch you and run it because we think that we can just overpower you, but they wanted to control the game. If this was a basketball game, they wanted to make Kansas City play a half-court game, make them really execute and have to deal with a game that went to the late stages of the fourth quarter if it was going according to script. And what they found is they were able to successfully run it. They were able to get some big plays off play action passes, and they were able to play from in front, which was really the key to the game. Tampa Bay had control of this game from the outset.
And by the way, who would have thought the man selected number 4 overall would outplay the man selected number 10 overall in their 2016 draft? Leonard Fournette. I mean, you want to talk about having an impact and what he found when he got to Tampa, Bucky, after being released by the Jags, having been a top 5 pick. He was as important to this Super Bowl run, I think, as any player on that Tampa roster and what they were able to do on the ground with him.
You know, Money, I think that's the thing that we always have to remember. Guys are picked in the top 10 for a reason. And for whatever reason, the Jaguars moved off of Leonard Fournette. But the talent was there. The same talent that we saw at LSU that made a lot of us in the scouting community fall in love with his game. He displayed that, particularly in the playoffs. In this game, though, 20 touches, 135 scrimmage yards, dominated as a runner inside. And it wasn't just the big runs. It was the physicality and toughness. Because basically the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pulled the Kansas City Chiefs into a phone booth and they peppered them with a bunch of jabs, and the Chiefs wanted no parts of it. That is why they were able to win the game.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you could make a case, right, that the more explosive plays, they came from the Bucs. You know, I mean, and it wasn't with speed. It was downfield throws to one of the slowest guys on the field. As you see Bruce Arians there celebrating the championship, he becomes the oldest head coach ever to win a Super Bowl at 68 years and change. But, man, it was play action, just, you know, fake it, get them to make that little misstep, and bang, it's guys like Gronk that were in the middle of the field that were getting those big plays on the play action and play action passes.
Yeah, and it was. And you notice what happened, Money. Like, here's what I would say about the Kansas City Chiefs defense. They are a defense that plays downhill. They are so used to playing with a lead that they don't really have to worry about defending the run because teams are always chasing points. Well, in this game, because they were playing from behind and they had to respect Leonard Fournette after he had success, they lost track of 87 on those play action passes. And so the game plan for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers worked flawlessly because they were able to establish the run, and that set up a play action passing game.
You know, is it, look, I think when you go back and you kind of go through the game logs and you look at the rosters and you try to figure out how did it play out? How were they able to win 3 road games as a wild card team and then get into the Super Bowl? And, you know, you can kind of make that case along the way, right? The injuries to the Saints created turnovers. You know, obviously they were able to create turnovers against the Saints. Injury to David Bakhtiari against the Green Bay Packers. They come up here, injuries to both tackles against Kansas City Chiefs. Is it easy? Is it okay to make that point, or is there more to it? I mean, or did they go out there and earn it, or did they catch a few of these breaks along the way?
I would say they caught a few breaks, but I would say they also played their best football in the tournament. Defensively, how many takeaways did we see them get in this playoff run? Week after week, they were getting 2 and 3 takeaways. And we know, Money, the biggest deciding factor in football, the turnover battle.
Yeah.
They turned opponents over. They set up Tom Brady and company for easy scoring opportunities. That's why this team won. And when I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we will throw all kinds of verbal bouquets at Tom Brady for winning his 7th Super Bowl title, and we should. But this was a team really playing complementary ball in each and every round. That's why they won the Super Bowl. They played great complementary football.
Yeah, and as you say that, you know, the first thing that pops into my mind is, look, Tom Brady threw 3 consecutive interceptions, and the defense picked him up on back-to-back interceptions, forcing 3 and outs by Green Bay when that could have spelled disaster. So certainly it's complementary football, like you said. The offense has a hiccup. The defense is there to pick them up. Same thing on the other side. You know, offense there to pick up the defense when they had a little bit of a letdown. All right, we're going to flip it to the other sideline. And remember, we were talking about a team that had won 25 of its last 26 games when Patrick Mahomes started for them. and a team that looked to be darn near invincible. What went wrong with Kansas City? We'll dig into that when we return here on Super Bowl Today, presented by Truist.
Waited for a clearing to throw it to him.
Here's the snap, run the ball to the right. Got a blind boy to the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Leonard Fournette takes it to the house, and the Bucs lead 27-9.
And 2017 draft, as I go back to the last segment and remind everybody the conversation that was being had directed at the Jaguars. How dare they pass on Patrick Mahomes for Leonard Fournette? Not trying to say that it was the right call, but just pointing out there's a great redemption story, it seems like, in every single Super Bowl, Buck. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find one that goes beyond Tom Brady leaving Bill Belichick, obviously, to getting the win, and really just Leonard Fournette being scooped up after being released. No one claimed him on waivers and ends up going to the Buccaneers and helps guide them to this Super Bowl 55 victory, their second in franchise history. And since we already kind of got into that, would love to flip it to the other sideline and just kind of get your take, that scout's take on what you think it went wrong and when it went wrong and how it went wrong for Patrick Mahomes.
Well, so here's the thing when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers played a game plan where they were daring the Chiefs to do one or two things. Either run it at them or Patrick Mahomes showed the discipline to really win with a bunch of them nickel and dimes. And what happened, the Kansas City Chiefs never committed to the run. So they put all of the pressure on number 15, Pat Mahomes, to make these throws, and he never was comfortable. Some of that was due to the pressure just overwhelming the offensive line. Pat Mahomes was pressured on 29 of 56 dropbacks. He was sacked 3 times. He was constantly on the run. And for a quarterback who we consider to be the baby goat, he never got comfortable in the pocket. And so this game plan was the perfect game plan because the Kansas City Chiefs didn't do what was necessary to get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers out of this too deep coverage.
Yeah, you got to look here at what a difference a year makes, right? Last year ends up knocking off the 49ers in Super Bowl 54 to get his Super Bowl championship at the age of 24. Throws for 286, 2 touchdowns, has 2 picks. But we think really more about, that fourth quarter comeback, that throw to Tyreek Hill, rallying his team from a deficit and getting a victory. And I think the one thing that maybe gets lost in this, and I know it's hard to play this game, but it's 14-6 And you know what the old adage was about Andy Reid. I mean, you know it so well, Bucky. It was all about timeouts, clock management when he was with the Eagles, the frustration for all those Eagle fans. Man, I think it is hard to go back to that timeout he called on a 3rd down and 2 when Tampa had just one left, kind of giving them that extra break. I don't understand. I cannot get my head around that play call. And man, 21-6 is a lot different than 14-6 when you're starting the second half with the ball.
Okay, so Money, let me break this down for you. Here's what happens, right? When you're an offensive-minded head coach, in your mind, all you're thinking about is, I want to get the ball back. I want to give Pat Mahomes another opportunity to maybe drive down the field and for us to get points. But what you did, you gave Tom Brady extra opportunities and put time on the clock so he could be in attack mode. And so now hindsight is 50-50, but that's what Andy Reid is thinking. If we can get a stop, get the ball back to Pat Mahomes, we get in our 2-minute offense, maybe we can put some cheap points on the board at the end of the half. But in that aggressive mindset, he hurt his team because he allowed Tom Brady to have more snaps, more at-bats, and eventually Tom Brady hit a home run.
You know, and the other thing, you know, the other hidden points, if you want to call them that, beyond, you know, like you said, that timeout that allowed Brady to hit that home run, you know, gave him an extra pitch, is the penalties. And you want to talk about, you know, there's an interception that wasn't an interception because of holding. There's a punt that goes for 56 yards, even though it was bobbled, that gets called back. And then the following one gets shanked. You're talking about a net 40-yard difference or 30-yard difference. You had an extra 4 points given on the offside there that would have been a field goal instead of a touchdown right here. I mean, my goodness, you want to talk about undisciplined football. This was a clinic in this Super Bowl by the Chiefs.
It was a clinic in undisciplined football. The first half, Money, they had 8 penalties. 8 penalties from a team that had been there before. And football is really, really easy when it comes down to it, right? Take care of the ball. Don't turn it over. Don't beat yourself with silly penalties because they give extra downs and they gift yards. And then it's a matter of winning in the red zone. And when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs in this game, they lost in each one of those areas. And so as much as I want to celebrate the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for how they were able to win, this was by far the worst game that I've seen the Kansas City Chiefs play. And some of that might have been due to the way Tampa Bay played, but they certainly didn't bring their A game in Super Bowl 55.
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of like, I thought you made the perfect point, right? They've been there. You know Ryan Jensen. You got 2 weeks, man. You know that you know what his MO is, how he operates, and man, Chris Jones, he just took the cheese. You know, Jensen knows what he's doing, man, and it ends up giving him that extra 15 yards. And I thought, you know, Tony Romo and Jim Nantz made, you know, it's great that they brought this up on the broadcast, and I couldn't believe it. You know, a defense that commits 2 penalties on the same drive, the offense scores a touchdown 80% of the time if a defense has 2 penalties on the same drive. And you mentioned it, 8 penalties in the first half.
Yeah, too many penalties. Too many penalties, too many big plays, too many PIs. And the one that's egregious to me, Money, and we can debate whether it was a catchable ball or not, but you talk about the timeout that Andy Reid gave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I will say, why is Brashard Breeland putting himself in a position where he can even have a defensive PI that allows the Buccaneers to flip the field and get the ball in scoring range? It is a 2-minute drive. We saw it happen for the Green Bay Packers gave up a touchdown in a 2-minute situation. I just don't understand how in these big moments we're seeing guys have these faux pas when it comes to playing situational football.
Yeah, that last bit of video that we were watching, by the way, I thought was just a perfect illustration, too, as we just kind of get away from the miscues and more of the defense in and of itself and what went wrong on that side of the ball for Steve Spagnuolo, because, of course, we were talking about what he was able to do with the Giants when they knocked off Brady's Pats, and they were looking for a shot at perfection there and didn't get it, and it just didn't happen, you know, and it to me, it started on that drive where you had the back-to-back Ronald Jones runs and then the play action. And it just seemed like that run was setting up what Brady does so well. And it's just those bang plays, right? Quick play action, you know, Mike Evans, Gronk in the middle of the field, you know, 1 foot and go right here, you know. And to me, this was the sequence that just set the tone that we're watching right now with Ronald Jones and then the play action for the touchdowns.
Yeah, look, this was well done. It was a great game plan by Brian Leftwich and that offensive staff. And I think Tony Romo talked about it. Runs, screens, play passes. They made the game very, very simple for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the postseason and in Super Bowl 55. They ran the ball effectively with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, 145 rushing yards. They were able to throw play action. Tom Brady only had 200 passing yards, but it didn't matter because it was timely and efficient. And that's how you want to play the game. And so I know the analytics people hate this when we talk about the running game, but you see it money each and every week. When you run the ball, you can control it, and it tees up some of the other stuff that you want to do in an efficient game plan that will allow you to win big games.
Look, I know it's become perhaps a bit nauseating, especially for the advanced analytics crew, but there's still something to be said for complementary football. I mean, complementary football allows you to do things, especially when you got Tom Brady back there playing quarterback. It brings the play action game alive. It sucks clock. And man, it can just crush you when you're converting third downs or when you're converting second downs for first downs and making your way down the field. You can really wear a unit down, and it seemed like the Bucs were able to do that. Well, speaking of Tom Brady, when we return, it's been discussed many times, and we're going to do it again, but maybe with a little bit of a twist, thanks to this particular championship, doing it with the Bucs and not Bill Belichick. Yes, Tom Brady GOAT talk is next. Some of the numbers, mind-numbing. All right, how about gaining greatness presented by Sleep Number? Here are the most Super Bowl wins by a franchise in NFL history. The Steelers and Patriots tied with 6 apiece. Cowboys, 49ers, 5. And, well, there's the franchise known as Tom Brady, who now has 7, more than any NFL franchise in NFL history. Tom Brady with 7, bests the 6 of the Patriots and Steelers. Classy from the Patriots social media feed there at Twitter. At Patriots, congratulations to the greatest of all time, former teammate with the Patriots, Julian Edelman, putting up that 7th diamond ring there. Can't stop, won't stop, the best ever in all sports. And some cross-sports appreciation with the If You Know, You Know GOAT talk. So let's go back to kind of what Edelman tweeted there, because we've already established that the man with 6, now 7, and he gets himself another Super Bowl MVP on top of that. Guy that won a regular season MVP at 40. It's pretty hard to put anybody else in that category in the NFL, but Buck, he's now got one more than Jordan. He's now in the conversation with the likes of of Joe DiMaggio and Lou Gehrig and those Murderers Row Yankees who won 7 or 8 or 9, depending on how long they were on those Yankees teams. But, man, I got a feeling that this might be his best Super Bowl championship ever, right? In his first year, changing the culture of a team that had a losing record and taking them all the way to the title.
Yeah, I think this puts him in a special category. I think it's very, very similar to LeBron winning in LA because you had to see it to believe it. I think for Tom Brady, I'll be the first to admit, I didn't know if he could win outside of New England because I'm so used to seeing him synonymous with winning due to what he and Bill Belichick have been able to do. But to go to Tampa, to go through the struggles, to be sitting at 7-5, and then to run the table, to be end of the league, the postseason as a wild card team, to win against 3 straight quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes. Hey, man, this puts him in rarefied air. And I just don't know if we've ever seen anything like this in my lifetime in terms of team sports. I think we would have to put him on par with what we saw Bill Russell do when we go back and read the history books of what he was able to do with the Boston Celtics. That's basically what Tom Brady is. Tom Brady is a culture by himself. He brings winning, and he brought that winning pedigree to Tampa, and they now are putting a ring on the finger because of it.
Yeah, you know, I know. Look, there's so many different analogies that are going to be made, and I'm sure the one that probably would ring the most hollow for a lot of people watching right now would be the hockey analogy. But kind of, I think, a Wayne Gretzky versus Stevie Y, right? So you got Yzerman, who kind of created this culture, this team guy with the Red Wings, and they were just this indomitable force. And Gretzky was just the most skilled guy that we had ever seen, and this, almost a Patrick Mahomes-like talent that you're like, no one's ever going to look like him. I don't know which one Brady is. That's what's so weird. Like, I don't know if, like you said, he changed the culture, he's the franchise, but then you watch him out there and, haven't seen it up close 2 years ago in the playoffs when I was calling games with the Chargers. The way he just moved in that pocket, those 2 feet at a time to get out of the way of Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, or like he did at this particular game against Frank Clark and Chris Jones. He's got the skill. I mean, it's not just the culture, like we mentioned with those other guys. He's kind of got both of those things and merges them together.
Money, the thing that coaches will always talk about is, man, if you can find a blue chip talent who is wired with a blue collar mentality, that's when greatness happens. And when I look at Tom Brady, that's what we see. We see a guy who is a very accomplished player who still works like he's an underdog. And that work ethic is infectious. When Tom Brady comes to practice early and stays late, he makes everybody else do that because if the GOAT is doing that, then certainly I need to be doing that because I'm not even on his status. And I think that is the part that he brought to Tampa. I think the other thing that we can say that he brought to Tampa, I think there are 2 things. Having watched Bruce Arians teams at Arizona and in Tampa prior to Tom Brady's arrival, I can't say that they were a team that really paid attention to the details. Right. I think Tom Brady's arrival helped them pay closer attention to the details. The other thing that I thought Tom Brady brought, his unselfishness and willingness to play complementary football. In the past with Bruce Arians, what they did on offense didn't necessarily match how you played on defense. But Tom Brady down the stretch, we saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run the football, get in power sets, run it to set up play action. Those are the things that he did in New England. I completely believe that he has some influence on how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played and game planned down the stretch because they played complementary football to win this.
Yeah, and I think maybe, one of the things that gets lost because we're in this era of athleticism at the quarterback position. And look, I'm you can speak to it better than I can, Buck, but I do believe it's darn near a necessity if you're going to be successful in 2021. Looking toward next year, Brady's the exception, right? But I think what gets lost is just physically how gifted he is. If you've ever been on a football field, I don't think you realize how big Tom Brady is. I mean, he is tall, he is broad, he's got a strong arm. It's not like, he's devoid of blue chip talent. And it's all the grind and it's all the mental game. I mean, there are physical attributes that are absolutely elite, when it comes to Brady.
Yeah, look, I would say this, and I would say because of the Boston connection, I would say very similar to like Larry Bird, right? Larry Bird, is easy to talk about Larry Bird's skills, his IQ, and those things, and sometimes you miss the talent. I think with Tom Brady, because he entered the league as pick 199. He was a 6th-round pick. He was a guy that no one expected to be the guy that he's become. It is easy to kind of dub him as the try-hard guy. And he is that, but he's also a very talented guy. I think now, though, Tom Brady has told us why winning is easier for him now. He knows all the answers to the test. He's won a million different ways. There's nothing that he hasn't seen on the field that he hasn't conquered. Because of that, there's a lot of confidence that he can figure out the Rubik's Cube when it's necessary. And we saw him do that. The way the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were able to do it down the stretch to go from 7-5 to Super Bowl champs, that's scary because guess what? Next year, they'll be more comfortable and a scarier version of the Buccaneers that we've seen this year.
That was Gaining Greatness, presented by Sleep Number. Tom Brady already said he's coming back. He wants to run it back, defend his title. What about the pieces on that defense, particularly that guy, Shaq Barrett, playing on the franchise tag next year? This year, I should say. Will he be back next year? We'll dig into that Bucs defense next. All right, let's get to Who's Better, presented by Truist. And here are your wild card teams to make the Super Bowl and get a victory. Started with Steelers 05, and they won 21-10, of course, on the back of that dominant defense. Ben Roethlisberger, a bit of a game manager there. We know about Eli Manning in Super Bowl 42. We talked about that. Steve Spagnuolo thwarting the perfect season of the Patriots with that 17-14 win. Packers behind Aaron Rodgers win 31-25, and then this year's Bucs do it. Granted, a little bit of a different year with the wild card because of the way it was set up with just one bye, but they get a dominant victory, Buck, 31-9. So of those four teams, I'm forcing you to pick which was the best.
Ooh, that's tough, Money. I think I have to have the recency bias and say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the best.
Yeah.
Because what they were able to do, they knocked off the most explosive offense that we've seen. I'm calling this team the Golden State Warriors of the NFL, the way they've blown everybody out and been up and down the field for 2 years. They held them to 3 field goals. Oh, this is the best performance that we've seen, not only in the Super Bowl, but then Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees to knock off the murderer's row of quarterbacks. I think they deserve credit for being the best wildcard team that we've seen ascend to the title.
Yeah, look, and again, as you mentioned, you're talking about a team, I believe the number was 25 out of 26 wins with Patrick Mahomes as quarterback. They knocked that team off. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. Now, granted, there's no fans in the stands or limited fans in Lambeau in the Superdome. in Washington, but you still got to go on the road 3 times. You still got to break up your routine. And I think most of all, you have to go up against a team that, granted they have backup tackles, but I think you talk to folks and most of them said, look, I'm gonna take my chances with Patrick Mahomes. The guy just doesn't lose. And they didn't just win. They absolutely dominated this game.
Yeah, they dominated this game. And I think this is one that every defensive coordinator around the league is going to look at. They're going to look and see, how did this team slow down the Kansas City Chiefs? Because we hadn't seen people really slow them down to this degree. And when I look at the Bucs and how Todd Bowles had these guys ready to play, pass rush being able to win with 4, which is something that he never really does. Right. He's a high-pressure guy. The way they tackled in the open field, Levante David, Devin White were terrific. And then the young secondary, not allowing the ball to fly over their heads, I think it was terrific.
Yeah, I think that's, to me, that's the key. What you just said with Levante David and with Devin White. Because I brought this up on Super Bowl Today on Friday. And I said, look, if you look at the division, if you want to know how to beat a team, look at what the division foes are doing. The Chargers just expended an extra draft pick to get back in the first round to get Kenneth Murray. 1. You got the Las Vegas Raiders that spent big money for Corey Littleton and Nick Kwiatkowski. The Broncos have spent big money on their safeties to have these physical, athletic safeties in Simmons and Jackson. And then when you looked at the Bucs, you're like, not only do they have the dominant front 4, but man, they have the most athletic linebackers. The guy that broke the mold or at least set the tone at that position in Levante David, and now Devin White to go with him. It just seemed like it was, you always say it, Buck, I'm stealing it from you. Styles make the fight, man. And to me, this style, it certainly tilted in the favor, considering the injury issues they had. To me, it tilted in the favor of the Bucs.
It absolutely did. And I think also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did what some teams are afraid to do with the Kansas City Chiefs. They challenged them. They hit them. They didn't back down. They certainly weren't intimidated by the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think sometimes when you're Kansas City and everyone is kind of bowed down and cowered when you've walked onto the field, I think that's something. The physicality and toughness never goes out of style, money. And we've said this, talking about boxing and all those things. In football, it comes down to the team that out-hits the other team typically wins. When I look at this game, and we'll look back at it, they tackled, they were physical, they menaced and mushed the Kansas City Chiefs, and as a result, they were able to win. This was a physical game. They played the game on their terms, and they were able to win because of it.
Buck, I'm thinking back 2 years, right? And it happened even before the Super Bowl. And here's Sam Acho with the Todd Bowles for MVP call, because, look, he held the team. Patrick Mahomes has never played a game in which his offense didn't score a touchdown. This is the first one. He had, going back to college at Texas Tech, every single game he has played in the NFL, his offense has scored at least 1 touchdown, except in a Super Bowl. But, I asked the question now, let's go back 2 years, right? And what we saw the Bears do, the Lions do, and then in the Super Bowl, the Patriots do to the Rams. And we thought, oh, look out. Here comes the dynasty. They're young, Todd Gurley, Jared Goff. And yet we saw that 6-1 front. They cracked the code, and it hadn't been the same since, right? Do you think we saw or we figured something out, or is this an exception? Is this an anomaly because of the talent, the play caller, and just it being a bit of a perfect storm with injuries as well?
No, money. This has always been the recipe for dealing with the Kansas City Chiefs. We can talk about what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did tonight. We also can talk about what the Buffalo Bills did the first time they matched up. But I'm going to go all the way back to 2019 when the Kansas City Chiefs lost. They lost to the Indianapolis Colts. Matt Eberflus is the master of Tampa 2. They held this team down. They kept the score down. They did similar things to what Tampa Bay did. When people start connecting the dots and seeing that Tampa 2 can slow down and give the Kansas City Chiefs problems, they are going to see that over and over and over again. And until they commit to running the ball or until they find more answers in the passing game, you can best believe that this game plan is going to be a staple in all of the game plans that they see going forward.
Yeah, and when you say that, I had a front row seat to it. I saw how Gus Bradley played him every year. And look, he did it with a rookie quarterback in week 2. And what did they need? A 59-yard field goal in overtime to score 23 points against him. So it's out there, but man, you better have the personnel. And I think you said it best too. You better have the guts You better have the guts to get physical at the line and not freak out and let those guys, it might happen, but you got to get home. They might beat you over the top, but you got to take your shots. All right, that was Who's Better, presented by Truist. Big congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are your Super Bowl 55 champions. Tom Brady wins his 7th. Tampa wins its 2nd. We'll come back. We'll talk about 2021 and the 2022 Super Bowl next.
He hit me up and he's like, "Yo, would you come down?" And I was like, I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you to make a move. And it's just been over a series of just talks, and it's just an unbelievable story.
And as we kind of wrap things up here, Buck, I mean, look, you know it. You spent time in Green Bay. You spent time in Buffalo. You spent time in Jacksonville and Kansas City. You know the difference between playing and practicing and living in the cold weather and playing and practicing and living in warm weather. And I think that's why you heard him say it, up on the podium when he got his MVP. We're running this thing back. I don't think people understand that haven't experienced both what climate can do for an athlete, for someone that's got to play outside and practice outside and have to go through those sort of things.
It's money. It's like playing golf.
Right.
Tom Brady was like, the ball doesn't fly as far when I'm up in Foxborough, but when I go to Tampa, man, I am hitting these balls like they're ladies' balls. I'm putting them all the way out there. And so he wanted to take advantage of that. And so it is a huge advantage for Tom Brady as an older guy, not only to practice every day in warm weather, but the division is full of games where he's either inside or even in Carolina. So he's guaranteed of seeing 10, 12 games in nice conditions. I think for him that works, which is why he's excited and ready to come back.
All right, Buck. Speaking of coming back, let's why not? Let's figure it out. We got the Super Bowl 55 is in the books. We now got to figure out who's going to be playing in Super Bowl 56. So give me the two teams that are playing in it and who wins in Los Angeles, I should say, a year from right around today.
Oh, money. Look, I'm excited. I'm already excited, looking forward to this one. This is must-see TV because representing the NFC, we're going to have your Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
And then I think when we go to the AFC, I think for so long we have been waiting for this to happen. But I think we may see the Baltimore Ravens finally get there.
Ah.
So the Dallas Cowboys Baltimore Ravens, and look, why not? Let's get Jerry Jones a Super Bowl so he can go off in the sunset and style Cowboys.
Okay. All right, I'll counter because look, for those all you Tampa fans that are excited right now, just understand what did we just hear today? This is the longest drought we've ever had for a repeat Super Bowl winner. It ain't gonna happen. It's too hard to happen. Guys go off. Shaq Barrett, all these dudes they're gonna go their separate ways. It's gonna fall apart a little bit here. Leonard Fournette, whomever. So representing the NFC, and I think this is gonna be the next domino to fall, Buck. I think San Francisco is going to trade for a quarterback. They're going to get all those defensive pieces back, and the 49ers are going to get back in the Super Bowl representing the NFC. And, I mean, come on. You know who I got to take in the AFC.
Who are you taking?
What's the formula to knock off the Chiefs? You got to have a dominant front four. You got to have athletic linebackers. You got to have a healthy Derwin James. And you got to have the rookie of the year.
The Chargers?
The rookie of the year taking that second step. And you got to have your Forrest Lamp.
So for the second year in a row, we will see a team play the Super Bowl in their home stadium.
Yes, exactly right.
Wow.
And it's not going to be Matt Stafford and the Rams because the 49ers are going to win that division. So there we go. Write it down. Make sure you get your notepad there. Write it down. Here's a couple final tweets. Always class. Patrick Mahomes, thank you, Chiefs Kingdom, for all the support. Wasn't the way we wanted it to end, but we will be back, no doubt. That team is going to be a contender as long as he's there. And you'd love to see this, Bucky, because I'll be listening for the Move the Sticks podcast tomorrow, all your takeaways. And, of course, draft season is now officially here the second that clock struck 0. It is now draft season. The Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock as we sit here right now. By the way, a lot of people think it's over. For Buck, it's just beginning. Well, it's been going for a while, but you're talking about 8-hour days of you watching tape now, getting ready for the draft.
Oh, man, it's so exciting. We got quarterbacks galore in the draft. Money, you know how it is. When we get together, and I'm sure we'll get together on some of these pro days and this stuff, it is going to be exciting to talk about the next generation of stars that are about to hit the National Football League.
No doubt. Be sure to follow Buck on Twitter. Be sure to subscribe to that Move the Sticks podcast. It's draft season. You're not going to want to miss it. The path to the draft, all the things we got going on NFL Network. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, 5 quarterbacks in the first round. Russo, giant defensive ends, athletic linebackers flying all over the place. Corners, is it Surtain? Who is it? I mean, it's exciting, man. It's draft season. Buck, I love doing it. It was good to get back together with you. A big thank you to all of you. Look, we made it, right? 269 games, and this was the 269th. The NFL did it. Congratulations to all of those that put in all that hard work, made those sacrifices to get this thing in. 16 regular season games, every round of the playoffs. And we crowned a Super Bowl champ, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brady wins his 7th. The Bucs win their 2nd. Thanks so much for watching Super Bowl Today post-game special, presented by Truist.
68 games to get here in this most challenging and trying of seasons. Super Bowl 55 is underway.
Fake pass to Gronkowski. He's going to score a touchdown. Touchdown, Tampa Bay.
And the Chiefs have held inside the 1-yard line.
Looks long, line drive, end zone caught. Gronkowski back in the end zone.
Run the ball to the right. Got a wild boy to the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Tampa. Intercepted, picked off a deflection.
Tripped up, he throws a pass into the end zone, knocked away, incomplete.
Oh, what a hit. How about that? One last indignity. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a 2nd Super Bowl title in franchise history.